we've heard us say this a lot if you've been to many of these sessions, this concept of customer service focus or just-in-time data governance focus, or we like now sort of recently started calling like a data help desk. So think about this knowledge base the same way you would on any sort of help desk knowledge base, and that people come in, if they find the answers, that's great. If not, they can request it. It can get to the right person to answer their question, update the knowledge base, and move on. And the experience of creating that content when it's a real actual question or need, it gets you much better information, much better results, and much better response from your community. So to drive that like help desk thing, you kind of need to either stay a little bit ahead of the people who are engaging this with content creation, or to make sure that you've got a good process to respond to requests. So if you're thinking we have this data governance system and no one's using it, there's no adoption of this, I think this is a common breakdown, is that either people, your requesters and your data consumers aren't engaging because either they don't find what they're looking for, and if they don't, they don't feel empowered or get results from requesting help, and your content creators, your curators, your stewards aren't using this because they feel like they're just doing busy work, or they're not really sure what they're supposed to be doing, or they have like hypothetical work that they're doing. So if you can create this balance and exchange between the content creation and the engagement with the content, it'd be great. So you kind of want to think about for each piece of content all the types of people that will be working with it, and what's the best way to have them engage with the content. And it is not always going into your data governance solution and searching within that. It has been our experience that that the content is all there, but if you are able to sort of insert their engagement with this content where they're working, so like, hey, I'm looking at a report and I've got a button that I can click that pulls up the documentation for that report, or if it's not there, a button I can click that will let me submit a request for documentation or to answer a question. But if I put that button to either show that doc or to submit the request on the actual report, or on somewhere in that report tool that is obvious to them, you're going to get more engagement than if a person's looking at a report, they don't understand it, they don't see any doc, and they're thinking, what was that thing that we did with the data get governance, what, the data what, where is that? And so you really want to think about how they engage, and think about each one of those, both the consumers and requesters of the data, and then how that gets handed off to your subject matter experts. And sometimes people are both. Like, I think that the report writers are a really good example, or the integration developers. They have to, they often have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and are experts on some things, but they're being asked to always do new things and build new things, of which, taking them out of their level of expertise, particularly often their functional expertise, sometimes their technical expertise, and they need to be able to engage with the content to say, hey, has this already been defined? Do we already know how to do this, or do we know what the privacy rules are on this themselves? And they might go find those answers and update it themselves, or they might need to go find the right person. But how do they engage from within the process as well as from outside? So the points to think about as you develop the strategy of your plan is to say, how are people searching and discovering this information, or how are they referencing it? Like the example on a report, and I can click on it and find this, or I'm on a data system and I want to go see what I want to request access to it or something. So how are they actually engaging with this content? And if they don't find what they're looking for, how can they request? So tools like ours, like the Data Cookbook, have that kind of baked into it and have APIs that you can use. But even when you have our tools, you have to think about, well, how do we expose this, expose the APIs, and where do we expose it, and how do we train people how to use that? So that kicks off the search. So this becomes this little loop here where people are engaging, where you get this content creation on one side and the engagement on the other, and they can feed each other. So once you get this stuff, these requests start feeding this loop of the balance between content and engagement. So anyway, that's a really long route down that thing, but this concept of the data help desk and the content and engagement loop is a critical key to success. You can do it without this approach. You can do it by just brute force committee approach, but it's our experience that can't last that long. Sometimes those, like we do have customers, unfortunately, who, put together a project where they'll spend 6 months, getting definitions and getting things documented. At the end of that 6 months, everybody kind of rolls off to other things and it never gets updated after that. So you want something that's going to live for the long term and have this ongoing organic growth to it. So this is why we say, like, don't focus too much on data governance as a project. Like, this is 6 months where we're going to get this stuff documented, because you're going to end up with this binder on a shelf that's out of date. Once things get too far out of date, people are going to stop looking at it. Even if you got really good information there, if it's 2 years old, it's not reliable. So if you have these processes where there's these points of engagement and the people can ask requests and it's just constantly getting updated and sort of baked into what people are doing every day, all the better. So focus on the processes and less on hey, let's do this specific project.